If you're from Texas and you like barbecue, you're familiar with the name Aaron Franklin. He's a pitmaster down in Austin, Texas, that uses a method using peach butcher paper to wrap his briskets. Stick around and we'll dive deep. Before we start with the method that Aaron Franklin uses, if you're unfamiliar with the barbecue smoker, I'm just going to go through a couple of quick pointers. So this is your firebox right here. On the side you have a dial that will dial in an opening that will open or close it. That allows oxygen to feed the fire. The smoke from the fire comes through the smoking chamber itself, which is right here. And this is the damper. So the more you open this up, the more it draws in the smoke through the smoker. You don't want to have your smoke stagnant in here, so I would suggest to at least have this damper halfway open. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the method of lighting the fire. You never do want to put charcoal or put your charcoal in the firebox and spray it down with charcoal fluid. That will give your meat a taste of lighter fluid. Not a good thing when you're smoking meat. You're going to put the point end down closer toward the end of the firebox. That thicker, fatter piece of meat will be able to handle the hotter heat. Since our temperature gauge on this smoker is on the left-hand side, if you're reading 225 on this end, you're going to be between 250 and 275 on this end. Most people don't know that the muscle on a brisket or the meat will accept the smoke intake or the smoke absorption on the muscle up to about 180 degrees. After that point, the membrane starts closing off and won't accept smoke anymore. So that's why a lot of times that people smoke at a lower heat, say around 200, it allows more smoke for a longer penetration into the meat. So what I'm showing you right here is how most people go about lighting their charcoal. They have a charcoal holder or lighter box where flip it upside down, you put paper in it, and then flip it back over, you put the charcoal in the container, and then go ahead and light it. Now what you're seeing now is the flame starting to come up through the charcoal. That means that the charcoal on the bottom is lit up very well. What you never do want to do is let all the charcoal get white before you put it into the firebox itself. As you can kind of see, I've put some of the charcoal mixture towards just gray around the edge. That will still give it a longer burn time. Now you're seeing me put some of the wood chunks on that. Typically in Texas we use post oak, we use hickory, which is kind of the East Texas. I would probably stay away from mesquite wood. Mesquite wood is very harsh tasting and will overpower the meat. There again, if that's what you like, go ahead and use it. Now you see me putting the brisket on the smoker. You'll notice the salt and pepper is all that I used on this rub. We'll go ahead and let this go for about 6 hours. We're not going to go ahead, we won't open up the smoker because we don't want to lose any of the heat on this. I've been cooking briskets for over 30 years. The method that I had always used was I would smoke my meat for about 5 hours. I would pull it off, put it on a piece of large aluminum foil, and then put about a half a can to a can of warm dark beer over the brisket, and then I would wrap it up tightly and put it back in the oven for another 4 or 5 hours. I never did check the thermometer on that because I knew that it was always going to be good. So I smoked my meat for 225 to 250 and then put it in the oven for another 5 hours for about 225. Sometimes I've actually turned the oven down to 200 and just left it in the oven overnight. Now when you put this in the oven, you'll always want to put that on a deep pan because you're always going to have the juices leak out of your the foil that's wrapped up. So that kind of meat comes out a little bit more like a pot roast. It still has a smoky flavor. It's going to be more moist and more tender, but there again, it's going to be kind of like a party pot roast. Let's go ahead and dive into the Aaron Franklin method of wrapping your brisket up in peach butcher paper. He goes ahead and smokes his brisket for about 6 hours for about 225 to 250. Then he will pull off the brisket, as we are doing right now, put it in the peach paper. Now you can find the peach paper at your local butcher shop typically. I found mine at local Yokel butcher shop up in McKinney, Texas. It was only $2.50. It was enough butcher paper to go ahead and cut in half and overlap and put my brisket on it. So what you're seeing right now is me putting the brisket on the butcher paper and rolling it up very tight and overlapping it. So you only want to roll it over once on the butcher paper and then lay it down. I always do mine fat side up, and that way it allows all of that good moisture to seep down through the meat. So this is the final product of the brisket. You can kind of see the smoke ring that's around the meat. One thing that I did notice, it seemed like it was a little bit drier than the briskets that I normally do. It had a fantastic flavor. One thing that I did do is I put just a tad bit too much salt on mine, so I probably would need to back off on the salt, but I went liberal on the pepper, which I actually like. I would have liked to have done a video with a side-by-side with the foil method like I use compared to this one, but the price of meat with briskets right now is really high. I did happen to catch this one on sale for $1.77 a pound, so it was a smaller brisket, around 8 pounds, and it cost about $15. One thing that I have started kind of migrating over to, being a Texan, I hate to say this, but it's easier and cheaper to cook pulled pork. In another video, we'll kind of go through that method. So a lot of people aren't going to buy the offset smoker, and most homeowners are going to have something similar to this. It's going to be a Weber grill, and that's all right too. It's very versatile. You can cook hamburgers or hot dogs on it. One nice thing about this grill, it has offset charcoal boxes, so you could actually take one of these out, put your charcoal on this side with your wood chunks on top, and then put your meat on this side over here, and just make sure that it's not going to get too hot. Again, you have the temperature gauge, and just make sure that you don't get it any hotter than 250 on this. Also remember, every time you lift this lid to take a peek at the meat, you've lost about 10 minutes on your temperature for cooking the meat. So try to keep that closed as much as you can. The meat's there. It's going to be done when it's done. And one thing you never do want to do with barbecue is get into a hurry. One thing that I've started using to clean my grates, you can kind of see the grooves that have already formed in this wood paddle, but I've started using this to clean the top of the grill, just like this. The reason I started doing this is I read an article one time where someone had used the wire brush to clean the grill. One of the little wires got stuck on the grate. When they put their meat on there, the metal particle from the grill brush got stuck on the grate, and then when you put the meat on, went into the meat. Someone ate the meat and swallowed it, and then it got stuck into their intestines. Not a great thing. So that's kind of one reason why I've kind of gone back to this, that there's not anything that would hurt you on this when you're grilling your meat. I hope this helped out, knowing that you can also cook on a Weber grill. The offset smoker is great too. One thing about the offset smoker is I've grilled steaks on this end over the firebox, and it really is close down to the fire and can sear the steak really quick. So that's also nice. I hope this was informative. I'm not a serious barbecuer, but I love getting out and barbecuing. If you want to dig deeper, there are a lot of channels out there that really get into just the barbecuing for the serious cuers. Hey, again, Pierce Andrews with Everything Texas and selling homes through North Texas Home Connection.